Hello, and welcome to the second part of the Deadpool and Wolverine review. If you haven't watched the first part, I very much recommend that you watch it before you watch this video, just so you could better understand everything that I say in this video. And once again, there will be spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine featured in this video, so if you've yet to watch the movie, then I recommend you don't watch this video until you watch the movie. For those of you that have either already seen Deadpool and Wolverine, or you don't care about Deadpool and Wolverine, or you've already watched part 1, let us proceed once more. After I finished watching the movie, I decided to read through a bunch of negative reviews from other people that didn't like the movie, and if I was still obsessed with the MCU, I would have looked at all of these negative reviews and be like, oh, these people hate fun, they're just mad, they don't like the movie because it's not an A24 movie about depression or whatever. Defensive fanboy crap like that. Instead, I found myself kind of agreeing with a lot of the negative reviews people left for the movie, or at least I understood where they were coming from. Midway into the movie, I came to the realization that I wasn't enjoying it anywhere near as much as I probably should have. I didn't find the movie to be as fun or as hilarious as it should have been. There's just something empty to this movie, like it lacks any sort of substance in it. You take away all of the fan service stuff and it's like, what are you really left with, honestly? Spider-Man No Way Home and Deadpool and Wolverine are both fan service movies, but I find Spider-Man No Way Home to be a much stronger movie for one reason. It still feels like a movie. There's undeniably a lot of fan service in No Way Home, but it all feels like it has a purpose, like it has a reason to be happening. In Deadpool and Wolverine, all the fan service just happens, you know? There's no rhyme or reason or anything like that, it happens. All of the cameos don't really have much meaning, they just kind of happen. Spider-Man No Way Home feels like it's doing more than just giving the fans what they want, whereas Deadpool and Wolverine is just comfortable doing the bare minimum. You have Deadpool and Wolverine together. You have Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman together as Deadpool and Wolverine. Regardless of the plot of the movie, regardless of the quality of the movie, it would automatically make a lot of money at the box office just for that. There is a lot of heart in Spider-Man No Way Home, you know, seeing the chemistry between the three different versions of Spider-Man, you know. You don't really get that in Deadpool and Wolverine. I guess, yeah, it could be funny sometimes seeing Deadpool and Wolverine interact with each other, seeing Wolverine getting fed up with Deadpool's shenanigans, you know, that could be funny sometimes, but overall the movie just feels weirdly empty and lacking. I didn't find the movie all that funny. There are a few funny moments in this movie, but they're very few and far between. I'm sure we all know about MCU humor, Marvel humor, you know. Well, that just happened, you know, he's right behind me, isn't he? You know, that kind of crap. The unfunny meta humor, whatever, that we all know the MCU for, especially the modern day movies post-Endgame. And I'm sure we're all familiar with Deadpool's style of humor. And now these movies, they're rated R. The first two Deadpool movies, they are rated R. And for good reason. There is a lot of swearing in these movies, and I mean a lot of swearing. There's also a lot of violence in these movies. Deadpool is a very sarcastic, comedic superhero. He's always cracking jokes left and right. There are tons of references and fourth wall breaks in these movies. And even though Deadpool and Wolverine is part of the MCU, the much more squeaky clean, sanitized MCU, even though Deadpool and Wolverine is a Disney movie, it's still retains the same style of humor that the first two Deadpool movies had. And I have to wonder if that's really a good thing. It's important for me to mention that I watched the first two Deadpool movies all the way back in early 2022, when I still liked the MCU, and I thought these were funny movies at the time. Watching Deadpool and Wolverine and not finding it all that funny just makes me realize I'm probably not gonna like the first two Deadpool movies either upon rewatch. Maybe I could have fun on some occasions. Maybe there are some fun moments sprinkled in here and there, but overall overall, I'm just gonna sit down and watch it and be like, what the hell is this? How did I find this funny? A lot of the excessive swearing in the movie just doesn't land well with me, you know? The constant F-bombs being dropped, they just don't really, I just don't find them all that funny. There are a few moments where it's funny, but for the most part, it's just not funny at all. A lot of the references and fourth wall breaks, it gets tiring after a while. I understand that that's Deadpool's whole character, that's supposed to be his whole thing, but like, that doesn't necessarily make it funny. The whole movie is just like this, it's filled to the brim with F-bombs and fourth wall breaks and references and whatever. It's like, it doesn't give you any time to breathe at all. It's brain rot, basically. It's skibbity toilet for 30-year-old man children. It just rubs me the wrong way, the fact that like people think this movie is comedy gold, but then like 2 years earlier we were criticizing Thor Love and Thunder for being cringy and unfunny. Like, I don't get it. Are the two movies really all that different in terms of comedy? How is this funny, but Thor Love and Thunder isn't funny? If the phrase Marvel Jesus was even said once in Thor Love and Thunder, we would never hear the end of it. Thor Love and Thunder would be subjected to so much ridicule online, it would just be incredible. It would be insane. The people that think the MCU isn't real cinema would have a f***ing field day with this, I'm telling y'all. But because it's being said in Deadpool's movie, because it's Deadpool that's saying it, that all of a sudden makes it funny and hilarious, and it just makes no sense to me at all. It just feels so weird to me how we criticize Marvel humor, but then like Deadpool is the only exception. Like he's the only one that's allowed to do it. I kid you not, there is a moment in the movie where Deadpool says, he's right behind me, isn't he? And it's like in Thor Love and Thunder, people thought that was unfunny. In this movie, people are gonna find it hilarious, and I don't get it. I don't get it at all. What's the difference, man? What's the difference? Again, I understand that that's Deadpool's whole character. He's meant to be a funny, comedic superhero, cracking jokes left and right and whatever. And some of you could argue that this style of humor is okay for him to do it because it's more in character for him. It's okay for Deadpool to make a, well, that just happened style joke when compared to like Thor or Captain America or whatever, because those are more serious characters when compared to Deadpool. If Captain America ever made a he's right behind me, is it he joke, it would be like out of character for him because he's meant to be a more serious character, but it's perfectly appropriate for Deadpool to make that sort of joke. And yeah, okay, that is a valid point, I'm not gonna lie, but like, does that really mean anything? Like, the joke is still unfunny. Even though it's more in character for Deadpool, that doesn't make it any funnier. When Iron Man does Marvel humor, it's not funny. When Captain America does Marvel humor, it's not funny. When Thor does Marvel humor, it's not funny. When Spider-Man does Marvel humor, it's not funny. When Deadpool does Marvel humor, it's comedy gold and he gets a pass. Like, no, that's not how it works. An unfunny joke is an unfunny joke regardless of which character makes that joke. Just because it's more appropriate for Deadpool to make these kinds of jokes doesn't mean it's funnier. As I brought up in part 1, I quit watching the MCU after Guardians of the Galaxy 3 in 2020. And I've gone on before saying this, but I think 2023 was a fucking terrible year for movies. There were barely any good movies that came out last year, but there were still obvious great standout movies that came out last year. It's the same thing for 2024. 2024 hasn't been all that better when it came to movies, but the few great movies that I've watched this year and last year, they are really great movies. A large majority of the movies that I've seen in 2023 and 2024 range from mediocre to garbage, but the great movies really stand out. They really shine. Last year, you had obvious standouts like Spider-Verse, Oppenheimer, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, stuff like that. This year, you have Dune 2, Challengers, Longlegs, Furiosa, that sort of thing. When it comes to the movies that have come out last year and this year, there are a lot more mediocre to bad movies than great movies, but that doesn't mean that there aren't any great movies at all. And so here I am coming back to the MCU just for this one movie, because I already know that this movie is going to be massive for the MCU. I knew that this was going to be another successful fluke for post-Endgame MCU, my personal thoughts on the movie notwithstanding. I'm trying to be as unpretentious as possible saying all this. I'm not gonna be like, oh, this movie is bad because it's not an A24 movie about depression. I'm saying all of this just like, this is how I truly feel, okay? I'm sorry. I'm trying to be as unpretentious as I possibly can. If you think that everything I'm saying is pretentious, then I apologize. But like, after watching stuff like Dune 2 and Furiosa this year, it's like, I go to this movie, I get a taste of what the MCU is like, and it's like, all of a sudden, I realize how off it all feels. The difference in quality between Dune 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine is f***ing night and day, seriously. I thought that this was going to be one of the better MCU movies post-Endgame, but not only does this movie not come close to being as good as Spider-Man No Way Home or Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but also there are other post-Endgame MCU movies that I would rank above Deadpool and Wolverine. Early into the film, it became extremely obvious to me that this was not going to be in the top 5 best movies of 2024 for me. And then like midway into it, I realized, yeah, no, this is not going to be top 10. This isn't even going to be like that. By the end of the movie, I came to the admittedly highly controversial conclusion that this movie is, it's closer towards the lower end of the ranking than it is to the high end. As far as the movies that I've seen in 2024 go, this is closer to Megamind vs. the Doom Syndicate than it is to Dune 2, and I understand that is an extremely controversial thing for me to say out of context, but again, that's just kind of how I feel. I didn't enjoy this movie anywhere near as much as I thought I would, and I guess that's just in part because, like, this year I've seen stuff like Furiosa and Longlegs, and it's like, it's kind of changed the way that I look at this movie. Not even mentioning the fact that, like, throughout this year, I've gone out of my way to watch, like, older movies that I never got a chance to watch. I watched Her from 2013 a while back, and it's like, I found that to be an emotional movie. It felt it felt real. It felt human. I know that's ironic, because the movie has a lot of stuff about, like, AI and whatever in it, but it felt human to me. It felt real. It felt authentic. It felt genuine. It's obviously redundant for me to compare a superhero action comedy to a romantic drama, but still, it's just going from Her to Deadpool and Wolverine, it feels off to me watching Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, the humor in this movie, I would probably love a lot more if I was still obsessed with the MCU. If this movie came out in the late 2010s or whatever, I would probably love this movie a lot more. But here I am now, no longer caring about the MCU, watching other movies that have come out, and it's like, I don't know, this movie just doesn't feel right to me. As I mentioned before, after watching this movie, I would read a lot of negative reviews for it, just because, I wanted to remind myself that I wasn't alone in thinking this movie wasn't that good. And scrolling through the comments for a lot of these negative reviews, I would find a lot of people trying to defend this movie. And when I say they defend this movie, I don't mean like, oh, they give actual valid reasons as to why the movie is actually good and why the person that left the negative review is wrong and whatever. No, I would find people saying that, like, oh, you hate fun movies, you just don't like it because it's not an A24 movie about depression, stuff like that, typical fanboy crap. And I already know for a fact that inevitably there will be people in the comment section claiming that, like, I hate fun movies just because I don't like Deadpool and Wolverine. I hate fun. I want every movie to be miserable and depressing and whatever. And I can assure you that no, I don't hate fun movies. I don't hate fun at all. I'm an animation YouTuber, for God's sake, okay? I make videos on cartoons. I think I would know a thing or two about fun. My problems with Deadpool and Wolverine have nothing to do with it being fun. If anything, my problem with it is that it's not really the good kind of fun, which is something I'll elaborate on later on in the video. I don't hate fun movies or anything like that. I don't think that every movie in existence should be deep and serious and whatever. Nothing like that at all. If anything, what we need nowadays more than anything else is a mixture, a balance between fun movies and serious movies. We used to have that balance, and now we don't have it anymore for some reason. In the 90s, you had dark, serious movies like Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan, but you also had fun, comedic movies like Dumb and Dumber and Austin Powers, and it was great. It was perfect. People were cool with the two of them existing at the same time. There was a perfect 50-50 balance between serious movies and fun movies, and there were no problems with it at all. Nobody had any problems with it. The two of them were allowed to coexist, and now for whatever reason, they are not allowed to coexist. If these four movies came out today, the former two would still be largely beloved, but the latter two would be widely despised. I could very easily imagine an alternate universe where Dumb and Dumber came out today and everyone dismissed it as cringy, unfunny Reddit garbage simply because it's not an A24 movie about depression. Dumb and Dumber's status as a comedy classic largely comes from the fact that it came out in 1994, when movies were allowed to be fun. Deadpool and Wolverine is, by definition, a fun movie. But the problem is, it's not the good kind of fun. It's artificial fun. That's what it is. Nothing feels sincere, nothing feels genuine, nothing feels authentic. Everything is just made out to be a giant joke. All of the constant references and fourth wall breaks and whatever. Look guys, we're being meta and self-aware. Isn't that funny? You know, it gets very old very quickly. A lot of the self-aware jokes that the movie makes at itself don't really work all that well. Like, I'm pretty sure there are a couple jokes that are made in the movie about how the MCU sucks post-Endgame, but it's like, those jokes don't work. You can't joke around and be like, oh guys, we know that the MCU sucks post-Endgame. See, we're self-aware guys. We know that it sucks post-Endgame. And then like, you do nothing to improve the quality of the post-Endgame movies. We are still going to get movies that are not that good. We will still get movies that could end up on par with Quantumania in terms of quality. Being self-aware that the MCU sucks post-Endgame doesn't mean much if it's going to continue sucking post-Endgame. It's not going to be as funny. Likewise, near the end of the movie, there's a scene where Deadpool and Wolverine face off against a bunch of different Deadpool variants. There's a lady Deadpool, a baby Deadpool, a samurai Deadpool, just a whole lot of Deadpools everywhere. And so it's during this part where Deadpool starts ranting about the multiverse and how it's become old and it hasn't been all that good and whatever, and that they should just stop with the multiverse bullcrap, and it's like, that's not funny. Being self-aware that the multiverse stuff sucks isn't funny if you're gonna keep doing the multiverse stuff after this movie. It's not like this is gonna be the last MCU movie to tackle the multiverse or anything like that. Of course not. We are still going to get MCU movies and Disney Plus shows that tackle the multiverse. So this whole thing of being self-aware that, yeah guys, we know that the multiverse stuff sucks, we know that you don't like it all that much, it doesn't work at all if you're gonna keep doing it. It doesn't work at all if it's still going to have the flaws that it's already had before. One of the Deadpools makes a joke saying that, like, they've been enjoying the multiverse stuff since Endgame, which I guess, again, that could be a jab to how, like, the MCU has been sucking since Endgame. And again, as I mentioned before, that doesn't work if these movies continue to be bad post-Endgame, or post-Deadpool and Wolverine in this case. It just doesn't work at all. I'm sorry. In a time when we're getting movies like Dune and Oppenheimer and whatever, I think people are ready to have real movies again, you know? Movies that feel real. Movies that feel sincere and genuine, you know? We're sick of the ironic, meta, self-aware bullcrap, you know? We want movies to feel genuine again. This movie made me think very deeply about the whole debate about, like, are superhero movies real cinema? Is the MCU real cinema? I've gone on before about this debate and my thoughts on it, but this movie really made me think deeply about it. A lot of the points that I would make about how, no, these people are wrong, superhero movies are cinema, the MCU is real cinema, this movie made me realize that a lot of those points are kind of wrong. I made a video going over this very topic. Are Marvel movies real cinema? Are superhero movies real cinema? Something like that. And, like, one of the points that I made was that there are a lot of movies, a lot of older movies from the past, that they really aren't all that different from the MCU, and yet they are considered masterpieces. Star Wars, Back to the Future, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, E.T., Jaws, The Wizard of Oz, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, you know, stuff like that. I was confused as to how these movies were real cinema, but not the MCU. Like, were they really all that different? I thought that it was just a case of recency bias, you know? If Star Wars and Back to the Future came out today, they would both be considered not real cinema, theme park rides, etc. But if Infinity War and Endgame came out in the 80s or 90s, they would be considered cinematic masterpieces, some of the greatest movies ever made. And it was all thanks to this movie that I realized why this point doesn't work. These older movies feel genuine. They feel authentic. A lot of these movies fit the criteria of being fun, but they also feel legitimate. They feel genuine. A lot of these movies have admittedly absurd premises. A car that can travel through time, a dinosaur theme park, a factory that has giant candy and chocolate rivers in it, that sort of thing. But the thing is, these movies are 100% sincere about their absurdity. They take it seriously. Could you imagine if in Back to the Future there were just a million jokes being made about the absurdity of a car that could travel through time? Meta, ironic, self-aware jokes about how stupid it is that a car could be able to travel through time, stuff like that. There's nothing like that in it. I mean, think about The Wizard of Oz. Think of how fucking weird of a movie The Wizard of Oz is. And, like, it plays out 100% seriously. It takes its stupidity seriously. If The Wizard of Oz came out today, not counting whatever the hell this is supposed to be, it would be full of, like, meta jokes and whatever. The amount of times Dorothy would be like, well, that just happened, it would be like, it's crazy. Nothing would feel sincere or genuine or anything like that. The amount of meta jokes that would be in The Wizard of Oz if it came out today, it's just, oh god, I could not even begin to imagine what that would be like. And then you have the topic of comedies. Those of you that think I hate fun movies simply because I don't like Deadpool and Wolverine, prepare to be blown away. A lot of older comedies are the same thing. Yes, they're dumb, fun movies. They're meant to make you laugh. They're meant to make you smile. But they still feel genuine. They feel authentic. A lot of these movies know that they are stupid, and they 100% embrace the fact that they are stupid. The Mask is a stupid movie, for example. It's wacky, it's goofy, it's cartoony, and it 100% embraces that. Again, if The Mask came out today, it would be filled to the brim with meta, self-aware jokes, you know? The movie would be aware that it's ridiculous. It would let the audience know that it thinks it's stupid as well. It's like the movie is facing the audience, winking at them and being like, see, we know we're stupid. We're self-aware that we're stupid. You know, it's just, and it wouldn't work at all. It wouldn't be as funny at all. I've gone on before about how comedies are no longer relevant in this day and age, with 2023's Barbie being the one obvious fluke. And I would say, in a way, Barbie kind of fits the same thing. It's like a weird thing, I don't know. Barbie is like in this weird 50-50 in-between area, where it's like sometimes it embraces how stupid it is. It feels sincere in its stupidity. Like, you look at the visuals, you look at like Barbie Land, you know, everything is pink and cartoony and whatever. You think about those moments when Barbie and Ken are like traveling to the real world, and it's like you have all those like paper mache stuff, you know. It feels sincere, like the movie is just embracing its goofy nature. But then there are other moments in the movie where it has the same sort of meta, self-aware style of humor that you would find in an MCU movie. And obviously, I'm not going to have double standards. I'm not going to say that the meta self-aware stuff is good in this movie just because it's not in an MCU movie. Truth be told, if I rewatch Barbie, I'm probably not going to find those moments to be as funny the second time around. But at least there are moments where the movie feels sincere. It's like a 50-50 where it's like sometimes it embraces its stupid, goofy nature, and other times it makes self-aware meta jokes about how it's stupid and goofy. But at least it's better than a lot of MCU movies. It's better than Deadpool and Wolverine, where it's just 100% self-aware and ironic and whatever, and it thinks it's cool and funny because of that. I understand that I am going to lose a lot of credibility for saying this. Nobody is going to take anything that I say in this video seriously after this, but I don't care. Even those Happy Madison, Adam Sandler comedies from the 2000s and early 2010s, like, even those feel a lot more genuine and authentic than a lot of MCU movies. When you really think about it, the MCU is just the modern day equivalent of these Happy Madison, Adam Sandler comedies. They're f***ing everywhere. They're inescapable. It's like every single week there's a new one being pumped out into theaters everywhere in the world. And these movies end up performing well at the box office. They end up making a good amount of money. They also end up being largely successful with casual moviegoers, people that just want to go and see a movie, hence why they keep getting pumped out. But despite that, these movies have a generally bad reputation among film critics, people in the film industry, you know, people that are a lot more professional about the art of film. Nowadays, people say Marvel movies aren't real cinema, but back in like 2009, you saw people say Adam Sandler movies aren't real cinema. It's the same damn thing. Time is a flat circle. History repeats itself. And even though a lot of these movies are consistent in quality, there are some movies that are able to stand out from the rest of the crowd. Some movies are significantly better than others. Some movies are significantly worse than others. Even though these movies are not that good for the most part, they feel like they have more, like, they feel more genuine and sincere than a lot of MCU movies. There's no meta, sarcastic irony or anything like that in them. The humor in these movies might be bad, but they feel more sincere than, well, that just happened. He's right behind me, isn't he? Jack and Jill walked so that Thor, Love and Thunder could run. Actually, no, that might be going a bit too far. I apologize. At least Jack and Jill has Dunkachino in it, and that's funnier than anything in Thor, Love and Thunder. A crappy comedy that has one funny joke in it is better than a crappy comedy that has 0 funny jokes in it. I don't care. Moving on from the Adam Sandler stuff and just looking at comedies in general, a lot of them feel more genuine and legitimate than the MCU. There's a reason why Mean Girls is considered a comedy classic, while Thor, Love and Thunder is considered cringy Reddit trash. There's a reason why Deadpool and Wolverine will be forgotten forgotten about within 5 years, whereas Superbad will forever live on as a classic. And yes, I do genuinely believe that Deadpool and Wolverine will be forgotten about in the future. It's going to age badly. Once the novelty value of, oh, Deadpool and Wolverine are in the MCU now, Wolverine is wearing the yellow suit, there are cameos everywhere, once all of that wears off, what are you really left with? You remove all of the fan service from this movie, and it's like, you get barely a movie. Around 4 to 5 years from now, when we fully move on from the meta, ironic humor that Deadpool and Wolverine has, we are going to look back on this movie, and we're not going to find it funny. This is a movie that is going to age poorly. Everyone loves it right now. I wonder what they'll think about it 4 years from now. And I'm gonna say something that I've already said a lot of controversial things across both of these videos, but I'm gonna say something that for sure is gonna make a lot of people mad. But it's the truth, okay? It's the truth. Deadpool and Wolverine is going to ruin the reputation of superhero movies. I'm not trying to guilt trip those that like this movie. I'm not trying to make them feel bad because they like this movie, because they had a good time watching this movie. I'm not going to do that at all. If you enjoyed this movie, then that's great. I'm glad that you were able to get more enjoyment out of it than I did. I'm not going to be pretentious. I'm not going to scold you and say that you should instead be watching A24 movies about depression or whatever. I'm not trying to guilt trip anyone that likes this movie. I'm just simply advising, please take this into consideration that maybe this movie could be seriously harmful to the reputation of superhero movies. I'm sorry, but you cannot praise this movie and say it's a masterpiece and whatever, and then question why superhero movies aren't considered real cinema. This movie and the praise that it's getting will just do nothing but further strengthen Martin Scorsese's opinion that superhero movies are not real cinema. I firmly believe that superhero movies are real cinema. I think that every movie genre can be real cinema, and I don't see why superhero movies have to be an exception to that. And when I say superhero movies are real cinema, I'm not talking about the DCEU, I'm not talking about the MCU, even though there are a few MCU movies that I argue are real cinema. No, I'm talking about stuff outside of the MCU and DCEU. Stuff like the Batman and the Spider-Verse movies. Those are cinema, undeniably. Whatever you want to say about the MCU, you could say it, but these movies are cinema. If Martin Scorsese ever watched Spider-Verse, he would consider it real cinema. Even if it's a superhero movie, he would put that aside, and he would acknowledge the artistic value of Spider-Verse. He would acknowledge it as a masterpiece, as art. Martin Scorsese is not an idiot. He is smart enough to know that not every superhero movie is like Thor: Love and Thunder. The main thing that bothers me is the idea that if we keep getting more and more movies like Deadpool and Wolverine, not only is that going to further damage the reputation of superhero movies, but it's going to make people dismiss the superhero movies that are legitimately great movies simply because they are superhero movies. There are people out there that are going to dismiss The Batman as a crappy theme park ride just because it's a superhero movie, and it's all thanks to Deadpool and Wolverine, and that makes me dislike Deadpool and Wolverine even more. I never brought this up before in a video, but there's another point that I thought of as to why superhero movies are real cinema, and again, thanks to Deadpool and Wolverine, I realize now why that point doesn't work. I see a lot of people say that superhero movies are oversaturated, which I do agree with, but the thing is, every single movie genre is oversaturated. There is no such thing as an undersaturated movie genre. We get a lot of superhero movies every year, but we get just as many, if not more, horror movies per year as well. And no one cares at all. No one complains. And there are a lot of terrible horror movies out there, and I mean a lot of terrible horror movies. Obviously there are classics, don't get me wrong, but there are also a lot of trash horror movies. Not all of them are like The Exorcist or The Shining or whatever. Every year you just get a bunch of cheap jump scare fests that have zero artistic value in them. And yet despite that, horror movies are still generally respected within the film community. No one says that horror movies aren't real cinema or that they're ruining the art of cinema or anything like that. Horror fatigue doesn't exist. There's no such thing as horror fatigue. So why is it different for superhero movies? We don't look at the bad horror movies and think, oh, horror movies aren't real cinema, they're ruining Hollywood and whatever. So why do we do that with superhero movies? Why do we do it with the bad superhero movies? And then I watched Deadpool and Wolverine, and I saw how largely successful Deadpool and Wolverine was at the box office, and then it made me realize the difference between the two. The most popular horror movies are also the most critically acclaimed ones. The bad horror movies, they end up being largely forgotten about. They leave behind no legacy whatsoever, whereas the critically acclaimed classic stuff like The Exorcist and The Shining and Halloween and whatever, The Thing, Poltergeist, they are still remembered. People still acknowledge these movies as classics, some of the greatest horror movies ever made, some of the greatest movies ever made in general. Meanwhile, the most popular superhero movies are the ones that damage the reputation of superhero movies. When Deadpool and Wolverine inevitably makes $1 billion and becomes the highest grossing movie of 2024, that's all I'm going to be thinking about. I'm going to be thinking about the damage that this movie will do to the reputation of superhero movies. Whenever we get The Batman Part 2 or Beyond the Spider-Verse, there are going to be people that will willingly, intentionally ignore these potential masterpieces simply because they're superhero movies. They're going to look at crap like Deadpool and Wolverine and think that that represents all superhero movies. Just ironic, self-aware references and fourth wall breaks, constant cameos, no artistic value or anything like that. That's what they're going to take away from the entire superhero movie genre. Meanwhile, again, with horror movies, the bad ones end up getting forgotten about, while the good ones, the classic ones, they stay forever remembered. They are cemented into film history. It's the exact same thing with comedies. There are a lot of terrible comedies out there, and I mean a lot of them. There are so many terrible comedies out there. It's incredible how many bad comedies there are. And yet despite that though, despite how many terrible, awful, horrible comedies there are, comedies still have a generally good reputation. Nobody claims that comedies aren't real cinema or that they're ruining the art of cinema or anything like that. And you want to know why? It's because we let the bad comedies become forgotten about, and we let the good comedies become classics. They are the ones that define the genre. Whenever people hear the word comedy, they're gonna think of movies like Mean Girls, Superbad, Napoleon Dynamite, the Cornetto Trilogy, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the Jim Carrey 1994 trilogy, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Ghostbusters, School of Rock, Airplane, stuff like that. That's what people are going to think of when they hear the word comedy. They're not going to think of that Jerry Seinfeld and Amy Schumer Pop-Tarts commercial that's supposed to be a comedy even though it has zero funny jokes in it. The most popular horror movies are also the ones that best define the genre of horror. The most popular comedies are also the ones that best define the genre of comedy. The most popular superhero movies are the ones that will damage the reputation of superhero movies. Sometimes there are movies that I don't like, not because they're bad or anything like that, but because of the impact that they'll end up having. And even though I've given reasons as to why I personally don't like Deadpool and Wolverine all that much, nothing makes me dislike this movie more than the potential impact it'll have on superhero movies' reputations. People will dismiss stuff like Beyond the Spider-Verse as being a dumb theme park ride with no artistic value just because it's a superhero movie. Again, I'm not trying to guilt trip those that like this movie or anything like that, but I'm sorry, you cannot question why superhero movies aren't considered real cinema and then praise this movie just because a character from a 2000s movie makes a cameo for 2 seconds. It's either one or the other. You can't have both. Superhero movies don't have to be not real cinema. They don't have to be theme park rides. Hell, the MCU doesn't have to be a theme park ride. When the MCU is great, it's really great, but unfortunately, it doesn't reach those highs that much. You might be thinking that I'm overreacting and I'm taking this dumb fun movie too seriously, but I don't care. When people inevitably look at The Dark Knight and think, oh, you know what, this movie sucks. It's a superhero movie, therefore it sucks. It's not real cinema. It's a theme park ride. It has zero artistic value. It's full of ironic meta jokes and whatever. I'm just assuming all of this because it's a superhero movie, and therefore it sucks. Heath Ledger's Joker sucks. You know, when people inevitably do that, don't come crying to me about how I was right that Deadpool and Wolverine would ruin the reputation of superhero movies. Don't come crying to me at all. For what it's worth, there are a few moments where I'm able to have fun with this movie. There are a few moments where the excessive swearing and the fourth wall jokes and whatever the references, they get to me. There are a few moments where I could find the movie funny. The problem is, when you fill your entire movie with just nothing but swearing and references and fourth wall jokes, it gets overwhelming after a while. It becomes too much. Again, I understand that that's Deadpool's whole thing, but that doesn't necessarily make it good. There are a few action scenes in the movie that I enjoyed. I liked the fight scene between Deadpool and Wolverine inside of the car. I thought that was a fun moment. Sometimes I am able to have fun with this movie, but generally I don't find it to be like a fun movie. Or at least like real fun, you know? It's like artificial fun. It's pseudo fun is what it is. It's artificial, corporate manufactured fun. It doesn't feel genuine, it doesn't feel authentic, it feels soulless and empty. As I've mentioned before, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was originally going to be my last MCU anything, really. But then I decided to watch this movie simply because I knew that it would be a massive movie. That's the power of FOMO, baby. That's the power of FOMO. Will Deadpool and Wolverine become my real last rodeo with the MCU? Maybe, most likely. I have literally no interest in seeing Captain America Brave New World, so there's that. I'm kind of interested in seeing Fantastic Four, mainly just because I like the retro-futuristic 60s aesthetic that it has, so there's a small chance that I might check that out, but I don't know, it seems unlikely. And even though I don't really think about it all that much, whenever I get reminded of it, I become extremely curious of what they're going to do with Spider-Man post No Way Home, so there's that. And then of course there's the recent news of Robert Downey Jr. coming back to the MCU to play Doctor Doom for the next 2 Avengers movies, Avengers Doomsday in 2026 and Avengers Secret Wars in 2027. This is either the most genius fucking casting of all time, or it's going to be a last desperate attempt to get people to still like the MCU, to get people to be interested in the MCU again, by having it be like, look guys, Robert Downey Jr. is back, you guys are gonna like the MCU again now, right? It could go either way. This is either a genius casting decision, or a desperate last attempt to make people like the MCU again. There are no in-betweens. And regardless of which one it ends up being, I am very curious to see how the final product will be. Regardless of how you feel about the news, we are all curious about how this will turn out. Is Marvel actually cooking with this, or is this just a last desperate attempt to make people like the MCU again? We have no way of knowing until 2026. Going back to Deadpool and Wolverine though, I understand that this is a movie for the fans. This movie is full of things that people have been wanting to see for a long time. I get that, and I respect that. but I do think that the movie could have had a lot more going for it. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning, Spider-Man No Way Home was the exact same thing. It gave the fans a lot of what they wanted, but it felt more like real. Like it felt like it had a purpose. In this movie, it feels like it just happens for the sake of happening. I feel really cynical right now, I'm not even gonna lie. I kind of feel bad that, like, I'm hating this much. I'm being harsh on a movie that's like, a lot of people love it and whatever. You know, maybe there is a little bit of passion put into this movie. For what it's worth, I think Hugh Jackman is great as Wolverine. He's definitely the standout star of the show. And even though I don't find him all that funny for most of the movie, I think Ryan Reynolds is good as Deadpool. The problem is not necessarily that this movie has fan service. The problem is that this movie solely relies on fan service and nothing else. The problem is not that this movie is fun. The problem is that this movie is like the bad kind of fun. The kind where everything is kind of cynical and meta and ironic and whatever. Nothing ever feels legitimate, nothing feels genuine or sincere, and then what you're left with is a movie that will age very badly within 4 to 5 years. Probably sooner than that, to be honest. I'm sorry, but I don't like this movie, okay? I've been sober from the MCU for over a year, so maybe that's why I don't like this movie or its style of humor. But again, after watching stuff like Dune 2 this year, it's like, I cannot go back to this and be like, yeah, I love this still. I still think this is great. After watching stuff like The Holdovers, it's like, I cannot go back to this style of movie, where everything is ironic and self-aware and meta. It's just, I cannot do it. All the references, fourth wall breaks, it's not funny to me anymore. I'm not able to enjoy it that much. I want movies to be real again. I want them to feel sincere. Deadpool and Wolverine doesn't feel sincere. There are a few fun moments in it, but it's not enough to save the movie for me. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen. As far as the movies that I've looked at in 2024 go, this isn't as bad as like Argyle or whatever. It's probably gonna be the best superhero movie of 2024, but like, that's not really saying much when you look at the competition. I'm sorry, but I don't like this movie. I don't find it to be a very funny movie. I just can't help but feel that it's empty to me, you know? I thought I would enjoy this a lot more, but after having sat through stuff like Oppenheimer and whatever in the last year, it's like, I don't want these kind of movies anymore, you know? It's not the fact that it's superhero movies at all, because superhero movies could very easily, like, you could have a superhero movie that's just as good as like Oppenheimer or whatever. That's possible. The problem is not that it's a superhero movie. The problem is everything else. I'm ready for more, like, real, sincere movies. Movies that feel like movies. Movies that aren't just a bunch of cameos stitched together to disguise an extremely weak plot. You know, I'm ready for something like that. I'm trying not to be pretentious and say that, like, oh, this movie is bad because it's not an A24 movie about depression or war or whatever. Because, again, I do like fun movies. I have nothing against movies that are fun. But Deadpool and Wolverine is not fun. It's the artificial, inauthentic kind of fun. I don't like this movie. This movie is going to damage the reputation of superhero movies. We are never beating the not real cinema allegations. Anyways, that's about it. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing, as it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you everyone for watching this video, and I will see you all next time. Adios.